Hello and welcome to Hardcover Feedback. I am Kelly Campos.
And I'm Brandy Smits.
Today we are reviewing what are considered in many circles of the world to be modern classics. Clan of the Cave Bear, Memoirs of a Geisha, and Good Omens.
Well, first we're going to start out with one of the few epic caveman novels, which is a whole series called The Earth's Children, Clan of the Cave Bear by Jean Auel. Near the dawn of mankind, a natural disaster has left young Ayla alone, wandering, fending for her life in an unfamiliar land. One day, she is discovered by the Clan of the Cave Bear, a people far different from her own. The tall, blonde, blue-eyed Ayla is a mysterious stranger to this clan, but as she grows to know them, she's welcomed.
One of my favorite books of all time. He made a motion and said the word feet. Moving feet, walking was the sense he was trying to communicate. She strained to listen, trying to hear if there was something she missed in his tone. Feet, the child said tremulously. Sure, it was not the answer he wanted. No, 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 walking, feet moving, he repeated again, looking directly at her, exaggerating the gesture. He moved her forward again, pointing at her feet, despairing that she would ever learn. Ayla could feel tears beginning to well up in her eyes. Feet, feet, she knew she had the right word. Why did he shake his head no? I wish he'd stop moving his hand around in front of my face like that. What am I doing wrong? The old man walked her forward again, pointing at her feet, made the motion with his hand, said the word. She stopped and watched him. He made the gesture again, exaggerating it so much it almost meant something else, and said the word again. He was bent over, looking her squarely in the face, making the motion directly in front of her eyes. Gesture, word, gesture, word. What does he want? What am I supposed to do? She wanted to understand him. She knew he was trying to tell her something. Why does he keep moving his hand, she thought. Then the barest glimmer of an idea came to her. His hand. He keeps moving his hand. She lifted her hand hesitantly. Yes, yes, that's it. Krebs' vigorous affirmative nodding almost shouted. Make the signal, moving, moving feet, he repeated. Clan of the Cave Bear. There was a movie on this in the 80s. Don't watch the movie. Read the book. It's such an exciting novel to read. It's based completely on the idea that there's this little girl who gets separated from her people, and her people are like us. They're Homo sapiens, and she gets raised by Neanderthals, which is what Krebs is, and they speak completely differently. They speak with sign language, which was that passage we were just reading there. She has no concept of what sign language is until finally she has this breakthrough. And that's what her entire life is like. She thinks completely differently. They have what they call memories, which is basically evolved instinct. So they don't have to learn anything, they just have to be reminded of it. So they think she's stupid because she has to learn everything and she has to be repeated and everything. And it's very hard to describe how much I love this book.
Well, it's interesting that you say the learning thing, because in fact that she can learn, she slowly surpasses the greatest hunters, the old medicine women who have been holding this, clan together. And so then she is even more of an outcast because she can learn. So instead of being praised for it, it's like, wow, she's kind of scary. We don't want to talk to her anymore.
Exactly. And so many of her differences she doesn't even realize she has. Like, for instance, she knows how to swim from the time she comes to them. She comes to them at about 5 years old is when she loses her parents and ends up with them. And she knows how to swim already. And people always think she's weird because she goes into the water because her bones are lighter than theirs. They can't swim at all because they would just sink. And there's one point where they went out fishing with the big nets. The whole clan goes out, and one girl, a little girl, gets dragged away in the river. And they're just watching. They can't save her. But Ayla jumps in and she swims out and she grabs her, and she almost dies herself because there's such hard water. But she brings her back, and then they're like, oh, well, good thing she's such a weirdo because otherwise she wouldn't have been able to save so-and-so, So slowly, different weird things she does become endearing to them in a certain way. But there's one thing she does that could literally get her killed, and that's hunting. As you mentioned, she surpasses the hunters. She teaches herself how to hunt by spying on the hunters. And hunting is for women, is completely against the law. and so she could literally be killed for doing this. And it's such an intricate world that Jean Auel builds. It's not just this one set of people or this one family. It's a whole entire universe that she builds very deeply and very intensely. And it's very easy to get wrapped up in the story of this girl and how she lives her life.
It's almost like I view Ayla as like one of the first feminists, because everyone is like trying to put her in this mold, and she breaks out and doesn't want to do the woman's role and doesn't want to be told what to do.
And she doesn't know why she doesn't want to do it. It's just who she is, and she can't help it. Like, she really tries to be a good person in this society. She tries to do what she thinks the women are supposed to do. She tries to do what her adopted mother and father tell her to do, but she can't help it.
It's not natural for her.
It's not natural for her, and she can't not help it. She has to do these things. And if there's any book that started the revolution of these prehistoric romance novels, kind of, it was this one.
Oh, definitely.
Even though it's worth noting that Clan of the Cave Bear is not a romance novel. Some of the others in the series could be classified that way, but this is not a romance novel. I also, even though I read it in the fourth grade, I would not recommend it for someone that young, because there are some disturbing images in there of some things that happened to her. But I wouldn't hold it away from my sixth grader. If they were intelligent enough to follow the story, I'd let them read it. So it's needless to say that I'm giving this book 4 stars. I didn't even have to read it again for the book review, because I've read it so many times in the past, but I read it again anyway.
Well, I was really excited to read it because you talk about it constantly, so I was like, all right, great. We're gonna
I mention it a few times?
A little bit. I've heard it in passing. But yeah, I definitely loved it. It's definitely one of my favorites. I will give it 3.5 stars. It was great.
You're just being ornery.
Yeah, well.
I love my 4-star book. All right, Clan of the Cave Bear, 4 from me, 3.5 from Brandy, and we'll see you in a minute.
Welcome back to Hardcover Feedback. The next book we're going to be talking about today is Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden.
Sayuri's story begins in a poor fishing village in 1929, when as a 9-year-old with unusual blue-gray eyes, she's taken from her home and sold into slavery to a renowned geisha house. Through her eyes, we see the decadent heart of Gion, the geisha district of Kyoto. We witness Sayuri's transformation as she learns the rigorous arts of the geisha, wearing kimonos, elaborate hair and makeup, and most importantly, competing with a jealous rival for men's solicitude and the money that comes along with it. When World War II hits, then Sayuri must transform herself again in order to survive.
All right, I'll read a little bit of this for you. Suppose that you and I were sitting in a quiet room overlooking a garden, chatting and sipping at our cups of green tea while we talked about something that had happened a long while ago. And I said to you, that afternoon when I met so-and-so was the very best afternoon of my life, and was also the very worst afternoon. I expect you might put down your teacup and say, well, now which is it? Was it the best or the worst? Possibly it could not be both. Ordinarily, I'd have to laugh to myself and agree with you. But the truth is that afternoon when I met Mr. Tanaka Ikiro really was the best and worst of my life. He seemed so fascinating to me. Even the fish smell on his hands was a kind of perfume. If I had never known him, I'm sure I would not have become a geisha.
Memoirs of a Geisha is one of those books that has like a legendary aura around it. Everybody thinks it's one of the best books. Well, it's got this great reputation, and I'm going to say something that you will never ever hear me say again. Watch the movie. I did not enjoy it at all.
I don't understand how books can get such a hype from people and be so disappointing.
Very disappointing.
There was almost a lack of redeeming qualities. Yeah, you know, the concept was kind of cool. There aren't a lot of books that discuss this kind of thing.
Right. It was very, much the only book at the time. I think others have come out now, but the forefront of discussing this society and everything like that. And It's got great concept, great characters, great story. It was so difficult for me to read. I mean, how many times can a leaf be blown on the wind and discover its thoughts and meanings and metaphors and inside of metaphors, and I couldn't get through a page
73
that way.
times. It's just constantly all over.
And it might be beautiful on a teacup, you know, that metaphor as a saying, but in order of, or in sense of furthering the plot and everything like that, it slowed it down so much for me.
Well, and it's like,
it was unreadable.
How many kimonos did Sayuri wear that we had the full description, top to bottom, this stitch, and it's like, I get it, they're pretty.
Exactly.
What is she going to do in this kimono?
Exactly, which is one reason why I actually do recommend watching this movie. The movie was beautiful, it was gorgeous, it told the story, it was a great story, and all the metaphors in here, you see them in 3 seconds. You see that leaf blowing on the wind that lands in front of her or whatever, you know, and it doesn't take as much time out of your life.
It's one of those things where I love descriptions. I love books that go into descriptions, but you know what? If you fill the book with descriptions, it loses its importance, and it's not necessary anymore.
And since we do have both books on the table, Clan of the Cave Bear was also a book that was heavy on descriptions, but there was just a much cleaner way of the descriptions. She described the world, she described the animals, she described the background of the characters, but it was in a much smoother way.
It had something to do with the plot.
It furthered the plot, exactly. Whereas for me, Memoirs of a Geisha, it just was like, okay, let me describe the kimono. Okay, now back to the story.
I wore these shoes.
Okay, now let me describe the shoes.
They were
exactly.
great shoes.
And yeah, so for me, unfortunately, because I really, really was so excited to read this book.
I was too. I've been wanting to read this for like 8 years.
And we decided, hey, let's do it for the classics show. And yeah, we were both very disappointed. So for me, I chastised myself for wanting to give it no stars and decided that the fact that it spawned such a good movie deserved half a star.
And I'm actually going to give it 1.5 stars, mainly because I really did enjoy the concept, and it was interesting historically.
Right, yeah.
And so I got something out of it, but not as much as I expected to.
Yeah,
So.
I saw a History Channel show on the Geisha. That was very interesting. Watch that and watch the movie. You'll be well off. Okay, so half a star from me and 1.5 stars from Brandy, and we'll see you with our next book in a minute. Welcome back. For our third and final book of the day, we will be reviewing a special treat. According to the San Francisco Chronicle, this book reads like the Book of Revelation as rewritten by Monty Python.
All right, now what happens when you take two of our most popular fantasy writers of our time and you put them together to write a simple story about the apocalypse? Well, you get Good Omens. Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaimen tell a tale of an Armageddon that goes terribly wrong through the eyes of its many key players, like Azrael and Crowley, respectively an angel and a demon, who just aren't ready for their time on Earth to end. And then there's Newton Pulsifer, you know, a witch finder who just wants to know what's going on because everyone keeps telling him different things. And then there's Athema Device, who's a witch and a descendant of the only person who's ever correctly foretold the future. The 4 horsemen are there: death, war, famine, and pollution, because pestilence is just a thing of the past. So, but just, they're like your normal horsemen, except that they're on motorcycles. And then there's Adam, the little boy who just missed his entrance as the Antichrist.
Hello, who is this? Dagon, Lord of the Flies, Master of Madness, Underduke of the 7th Torment. What can I do for you? The Hellhound. I'm just checking that it got off okay. Released 10 minutes ago. Why? Hasn't it arrived? Is something wrong? Oh, no, nothing's wrong. Everything's fine. Oh, oops, I can see it now. Good dog. Nice dog. Everything's terrific. You're doing a great job down there, people. Well, lovely talking to you, Dagon. Catch you soon, huh? He flipped off the radio. They stared at each other. There was a loud bang from inside the house, and a window shattered. Oh dear, muttered Azrael, not swearing with the practiced ease of one who has spent 6,000 years not swearing and who wasn't going to start now. I must have missed one. No dog, said Crowley. No dog, said Azrael. The demon sighed. Get in the car, he said. We've got to talk about this. Oh, and Azrael, yes. Clean off that blasted cream cake before you get in. Azrael and Crowley.
I love this book so much.
Two very funny characters. This demon and this angel, who at the beginning of the book, you meet them standing outside of the Garden of Eden. Azrael has just given his flaming sword to Adam and Eve so they could have fire because he felt a little sorry for them. And Crowley was the one who just tempted them. Yet somehow they're standing there next to each other, just buddy-buddy and chit-chatting a little bit about the fate of the world.
Well, it's like they got to the point where they've been together since the beginning of time.
Yes.
They've been stuck on Earth since the beginning of time and just kind of became common friends with disagreements.
It's very much like what actually happened in like World War I and II, where the enemy would be literally right on the other side of that ridge, and then it's Christmas Day and nobody feels like fighting, so hey, you want a beer? Yeah, I want a beer, you know, and then they end up hanging out for the day. Next day they're shooting at each other again.
It's just,
it's very similar to that. They've spent so much time being enemies that they're really kind of friends, you know. They're looking out for each other a little bit, you know. And the apocalypse comes, it's time, and neither one of them really wants the world to end.
Well, the whole big problem that surrounds Good Omens is that the Antichrist was supposed to be born at a specific hospital by a specific group of people, but somehow this crazy nun took the wrong baby. So they have no idea where the Antichrist is, and they're kind of like, well, we're supposed to find it, but
do we really?
We don't want to, so let's just forget about it.
And Adam, the Antichrist, who is really the Antichrist, is really just a normal kid, you know, with kind of a mean streak, but he's not really bad. He just, you know, is a kid.
He understands he has power, and like things start happening. Like when he makes up this whole story about how the Buddhist monks from China dig through the earth and have a whole intricate tunnel system that they can pop out at any time. And then suddenly there's like reports of Buddhist monks popping in on the expressway. It's just hysterical.
Well, he reads all these magazines like the Inquirer, basically, and since he believes them and he tells his friends, like, look, this is what happens, then it actually happens. Hence the Buddhist monks and all kinds of things like that, and whales popping up in random places. I mean, it's really pretty funny how these things happen. It's very funny language, very funny circumstances that just come out of nowhere. But that's what you would expect from Pratchett and Gaimen. They're two very good authors who have, you know, their own cult followings, and this really takes the best of both authors and puts it into this really amusing little package.
It just meshes so well that you could never guess it's written by two separate people. They work together so well.
Definitely.
And there's so many characters, and it's so easy to follow, yet so elaborate.
Exactly. For the amount of characters it has, it really is extremely easy to follow because it all makes so much sense. You know, for instance, Crowley, the demon, he's been driving the same car since it came out in 1929, you know, and he takes care of it, and it makes sense with his character because he loves the world the way it is. He likes the cell phones, he likes this, he likes the material wealth and everything. This is, of course, the demon, and that's why he doesn't want the world to end. He likes his car too much, or one of the reasons he doesn't want the world to end. And the angel has a bookstore.
He just likes to collect his old books.
He likes
his
old books.
He doesn't even sell them. He just has them.
He just collects them. Has a bookstore. And it's just doesn't want the world to end because he likes his books too much. You know, it's that kind of thing.
It's so good, and we can keep talking about this forever, but
we can't.
We can't because you have to read it because it's just not as good unless you actually read it. So
exactly.
We'll stop talking about it.
And the basic plot is the apocalypse, which is why we didn't go too far into that.
The world is ending. Is it going to end?
Is it?
It's not going to end.
Maybe not. Maybe.
I don't know.
I give this book 3 stars.
4 stars.
I knew you would.
I don't give out 4 stars very often.
I know you don't. I know you don't. But this is one of your favorite books, and it was a very good book. The only reason I held back from that 4th star was there were certain little plot things that I was like, oh yeah, I knew that was coming, but minor, extremely minor stuff. But it was a very good book.
Let's do a recap. All right.
First was Clan of the Cave Bear by Jean Auel. 4 stars from me, 3.5 from Brandy.
That's right.
Second up,
we got Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden. Kelly stuck in there with that half star, and I gave it 1.5 stars.
And then finally was Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaimen. 3 stars from me, 4 stars from Brandy.
And that's it.
That's it for our show today. Hope you enjoyed the books. If you didn't, that's fine too. Just get out and read something. Make sure you check out your local library for these books and other fine stories of literature. And we will see you next time on Hardcover Feedback. Bye.